Kingdom Hearts is standing on a bit of a precipice as a series at the time that I record this in September of 2024. Now, looking back, this video could be something where people say, hey, he jumped the gun, everything turned out completely fine. Yeah, maybe the worries were a little warranted, but you know what? It all turned out completely fine in the end. They knew what they were doing. Or it could be something where people look back and they're like, oh, well, I didn't think of it that way. I want the best for this series. And I do want to clarify a couple things before I talk about this. Tetsuya Nomura recently basically commented a lot about Kingdom Hearts, more about Final Fantasy, but a lot about Kingdom Hearts in a recent interview he did with Young Jump. And this interview he was pretty forthcoming in, and I think that he is a very understanding creator. He's one of the creators I really respect because he actually listens to fan feedback, not at the I would say not at the detriment of what he makes. You know, it's not like he goes on Archive of Our Own, picks the cringiest story and runs with it. But what I mean is he literally says in this interview, and he said before, he watches YouTube videos about the series. He listens to people's opinions. Some of the reasons characters returned to the series actually were fan feedback and liking, certain characters more than he thought they would. So I really respect Tetsuya Nomura. Also, I'm not one of the people who hated Kingdom Hearts 3. I know that there is a large subset of people who did not like it at all, and while it is not my favorite and I have some criticisms of it, I still really, really love that game. Missed opportunities and all. And if it's your favorite, good for you. I think that it's still a fantastic game. I'm not coming at this from either of those angles of disrespecting or disliking Tetsuya Nomura, his work, his team's work, Disney characters, or hating Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm looking at this from a couple of angles. First off, Tetsuya Nomura revealed in this interview that he plans to retire in a few years. That is absolutely his right, and that's something we will look at for the future of the series. Also, we recently had the takedown, or should I say delisting, of Dark Road, which was very important to the future, or the past of the series, I would say, with the Dark Seeker saga involving Xehanort, Ansem, Xemnas, all this stuff. That was a very important story. We had the shutting down of Union Cross, which also was important, tying into Scala ad Caelum. And finally, we don't know where those things are going to go. I do want to throw that out there. And we also have people waiting bated breath on Kingdom Hearts 4, with pretty much a promise that it wouldn't take as long as it took to get to 3, but still a lot of people kind of waiting, fingers crossed. So we're going to hit some things he talked about in this interview, and I want to talk about some of the concerns that I've seen other people who are big fans of Kingdom Hearts have. That does not mean that my opinion is worth any more than anyone else's, but these are some things that I think are a little frustrating and a little worrisome about the future of Kingdom Hearts right now. If you enjoy this video, you want to leave a like, subscribe, let me know what you think in the comments down below. That kind of thing helps me out a lot. I did have a question of the day for you, which is, do you want Kingdom Hearts to end? And what I mean by that is not eventually, but what I mean by that is when Tetsuya Nomura leaves, do you want nothing Kingdom Hearts? Or would you want spin-offs? Would you want stories from the team, from other people? I'm interested. Because Tetsuya Nomura revealed in this interview that he did plan to retire actually in a few years, talking about how essentially he had set up different things in the storylines, kind of foreshadowing towards the future, towards what he envisioned to be a bit of the end of the series. He talked about Kingdom Hearts 4 and talking about how basically he's thinking of Missing Link and KH4 as kind of a reset. I felt like I'd finished with Kingdom Hearts 3 and wanted to start again, because as you know, that's kind of the end of that Dark Seeker saga. So I've brought in new writers and even changed the logo to make it easier for new people to get involved. He went on to say, if you remember how the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3 goes, you'll understand that Sora ends up like that because he's resetting the story in a way. So Kingdom Hearts 4 should be easier to get into than before. I think that if you like the series, you'll feel like this is it. But I'm also hoping that many new players as possible will play it. He then talked a little bit as well about there being foreshadowing and said that the name Quadratum actually didn't exist at the time, but answering the interviewer's questions, talking about the phrase, I've been having these weird thoughts lately, like is any of this for real or not, he went on to say that the idea was always there, basically of Quadratum, and it was a long preparation for the day when I would reach this point. Finally, I think the last statement that he made here, and there are other statements about Kingdom Hearts that you can absolutely look at. I will link the article in the description down below if you want to take a look. But the last statement that kind of worries me is this. When he was answering a question about, so it was actually a foreshadowing that took 20 years leading to Quadratum, then do you see a future where the Kingdom Hearts series will be completed? Nomura answered, if this isn't a dream, then I only have a few years left until I retire. And it's looking like, will I retire or will I finish the series first? However, I'm making Kingdom Hearts 4 with the intention of it being a story that leads to the conclusion. Now, some people are already screaming at me, in their head at least, maybe through their keyboard, it's okay for things to end. It is absolutely okay for things to reach a conclusion, to fizzle out, not in a bad way, but in a way of like, we told our story, we wrapped it up, and we're done. And Jay, sometimes you ask for things to go on too long because you love those things. I agree with that. I think there are definitely times where I'm thinking of fan pitches, I'm thinking of things that we haven't seen in these universes, I'm thinking of things I would love to play, watch, read, and I wish that I saw those. I agree. And maybe sometimes those stories would not be best for whatever that universe is. I also have seen a lot of universes, a lot of stories, a lot of brands that try and wrap everything up with a bow, but they don't know how to, and that was, I think, an issue with Kingdom Hearts 3. Now, I love that game, but there were some things I think that they did even in wrapping up the Darkseeker saga that were a little frustrating, doing things like adding time travel, doing things like, and I guess that was already kind of a thing in Dream Drop Distance, but it became more prevalent in 3. Doing things like tying into mobile games like Dark Road, having that be very essential to Xehanort's story. There were things that they did there to try and tie that up that now, at this moment, the story is suffering for. The story is suffering from complications, from trying to tie into mobile games, from trying to put a bow on everything and explain everything while also introducing a new storyline. That doesn't mean that it was bad, but it just means that the complexity of Kingdom Hearts, and yes, it is complex. If you are one of those people who I would say is kind of an elitist fan who says, it's not difficult, it's not complex, it's easy to understand, you're just stupid, because I've seen a lot of elitist fans try and say that kind of thing. Nomura in this interview even said that he actually does have to write a lot in his own notes to make himself and the staff remember, and that he literally has to go back and watch YouTube videos, like playthroughs, reviews, etc., to remember parts of the story, different details, and make sure that he doesn't make mistakes. This doesn't mean that he doesn't know what he's talking about, it just means this is a very long-running story that has gotten very complex, whether you want to admit it is or not. Not necessarily you watching, but somebody who doesn't want to admit it. So I think that this story has already gained complexity over the years. It finally was able to figure out a lot of that by consolidating itself into one platform with things like PlayStation and Steam, obviously. But I do think that that made the story a little more convoluted and made it so that they had a harder time wrapping up the Darkseeker saga. I think that's fair to say. Now we're moving into a new saga, and we're talking about not just the ending of a saga, but the ending of the story, the ending of Kingdom Hearts. And I ask you this, first off, there are a million things we have not seen in the Kingdom Hearts universe that I know people want to see. And I guess my first question would be, don't people want to see those things? Now that doesn't mean that, because we didn't get to see some random world that the series should continue, but it just means that there are a lot of missed opportunities and things we haven't gotten to see. And we're finally getting to see Sora start to grow up, get a little older. When has Disney ever let something end? And what I mean by that is something that could make them more money. Now, Tetsuya Nomura has every right to retire. Absolutely. He's worked a hard job, he's done a lot of creating, he's been responsible for a lot. I'm not saying he doesn't have the right to retire. Now, do I wish in some ways that he would be like a guy like Hayao Miyazaki, who's out there still making anime at like 83, I think, or 84, somewhere around there? Sure, I wish that he would keep making stuff because I think Nomura's great. I think he's an awesome creator, and I love that he's one of the people who listens to his fans. But once Nomura is gone, even if he wraps everything up with a bow and does so perfectly, I do worry about how Disney will handle those things. There was allegedly a lot more interference with Kingdom Hearts 3. You know, Disney getting involved, things like Frozen, things like Tangled, things that weren't necessarily super old, you know, like Hercules, where they just don't want to do anything with it. Things that they might have plans for, especially Frozen, Toy Story, those kinds of things that they just don't let end. Those are examples of it right there. I love the Frozen movies, but Frozen was a standalone movie. Didn't need a sequel, thought it was good, but who's to say 3 will be good? You know, obviously Toy Story with Pixar, I think 4 was a massive step down that actually impacted the ending of 3, which was the ending of pretty much, I thought, an almost perfect trilogy of films. Not to be Quentin Tarantino here, but it's like, why did you need to make Toy Story 4? Oh, you know why? Because Disney, and in that case Pixar, you know, who wanted to be successful through Disney as well, didn't want it to end. Star Wars. There are so many stories that people want to see from Star Wars that we never get to see. We've never gotten to see, and we probably never will get to see. But there are a lot of Disney ways that Disney has wasted a lot of money through Lucasfilm, through Star Wars, and making things people don't want to watch, don't want to play, don't want to see, and that's what they've pushed. Because they don't want the story to end. Because they paid, you know, $1 billion or however many $1 billion for that series, so of course they're gonna milk it. And so that's kind of my first concern there with the series ending, is say Nomura steps away, who is to say that Disney allows this series to end? Now maybe Square Enix refuses to make it, but my understanding is Disney owns pretty much all the rights to this. That was kind of the agreement when Nomura and crew made this, was that Disney pretty much owns everything. Disney doesn't really let you make anything through them that they don't own. They learned their lesson. They learned their lesson when they would license things, you know, when they would get characters by licenses and then make stuff. Notice they don't do that anymore. Notice everything they have to buy. They have to own it. The only thing that I can really think of that they're working with right now, and I'm sure there's something else, is Spider-Man, in terms of them not owning necessarily all the live action rights to and having to work with Sony. But the reason that they're doing that is because it prints them money. Again, it's about money. So will Disney let that go? Now, while Nomura is there, and this is something my friend Alex Podcast Now talked about, and we've made some videos on Kingdom Hearts together before. This is something he talked about to me behind the scenes, and I agree with him. While Nomura is there, if Disney wants to interfere, you have Nomura, where this is kind of like his love child. Like, he loves this series. He adores it. He's not going to let them ruin it, right? When he's gone, they're probably not going to let it go. So who is going to stand in the crossfire like that with that amount of pull and leverage that can make it so that Disney doesn't interfere? Because I guarantee we will still get spin-offs or books or games or whatever. Nomura can end it perfectly, they will still want to make them. So what happens in that case? My other question is, what happens to the preservation of this series? At the time, the moment of recording this, if you look back in the future and it's different, I would love for it to be better. We are missing Dark Road, delisted. Union Cross was already shut down, now that's delisted. We're getting Missing Link, which is another canon story game. Who knows how long that will last? We are not really able to play 358 anymore, or Coded. Those are both just cutscene compilations in the different remasters of Kingdom Hearts. You can't actually play them, which directly impacts the story and directly impacts, I would say, the way that story unfolds and the enjoyment of the medium. So there's already a problem as well with preservation of Kingdom Hearts, even with Nomura there. You know, someone who this is his love child and he loves it. How much worse could that get in the future when someone like him is gone? These are things that kind of concern me. Now, at the end of the day, if these things don't come to pass in terms of like I guess they don't get worse and these problems are all fixed, I would love that. I don't want these things to be issues, but they do concern me. Even down to the idea of Kingdom Hearts 4, the way that this interview is worded, and I will say I went through two different things. I went through a kh13.com article where this portion was translated by translator Ryuji, and I also went through a Google translated version of this article as well. So both different ways I kind of looked at what he was saying. And one of the things that does concern me is the idea of, is any of this for real or not? So you're now introducing these ideas as well of, you know, death, and which is fine, and you're introducing these ideas of quadratum, and you're introducing these ideas of like reality within unreality. And this is something that's supposed to be a new entry point to the series, but also reaching towards the conclusion of the series for longtime fans. And I do wonder if this is something a little bit like time travel, where it is going to pan out satisfyingly for some people and very, very frustratingly for a lot of others. I guess these things all together are just something that I've kind of been thinking about with the future of Kingdom Hearts, and it does concern me a little. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I do not just try and talk negatively about Square Enix and their properties. I do have one more video, which is kind of a I don't get what Square is doing about something, but I actually have several videos coming up that are much more positive that I wanted to talk about as well with some of these properties. So I appreciate if you stick around and check those out. We've actually played through some Kingdom Hearts games over on our Let's Play channel, Degenerate Plays. That is a channel where my friend Nate and I, my friend T and I, my wife Jill and I, we all play through games together, mix and match the roster of people there. We have a fun time. We'd appreciate if you check that out. And finally, we do also have our own store, cosmobunny.shop, where you can use code DJAY123 for 10% off your first purchase of coasters, keychains, trays, and more. These are resin items that are transformative from comic books, manga, and magazines that are damaged. They're going basically into the trash, into landfills. What we do is we take them, we make something new out of it, and you know, that's supposed to be the whole point of fair use, making something new out of something old that doesn't actually replace it. We make that for your home, we have a great time, and that same code DJAY123 is also our Fortnite code. So have a fantastic day. I appreciate you, and I never try and fearmonger. These are just some things I was thinking about that I do worry about when you're trying to push towards apparently the conclusion of such an iconic series. And as always, everyone, stay shui.